We want to welcome you today, Palm Sunday, and we're entering into what is called Holy Week. It's a great time to celebrate the death of Christ, the resurrection of Christ, and just celebrate what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And if you're here today and you are a follower of Jesus, we just welcome you among us. Maybe you're here today, you're not a follower of Jesus. We would want to invite you to begin following Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior. I want to ask you a question today. What is your most embarrassing moment? You know, sometimes we're asked that in a game. Maybe we're asked that in a point of conversation. We're asked, what is our most embarrassing moment? A time when we did something that was kind of dumb, something that we regret, something that if we had to do over, we would do it differently. I can tell you one of my most embarrassing moments. It was at a funeral. And so I was the associate pastor here. This was back in the 90s. And there was a family that did not have a pastor. And so they called our church. It was Baker Funeral Home. Called our church and asked if one of the pastors would do a funeral for this family. I agreed to do it. And this is when we were at the old Baker Funeral Home downtown. And so the night before at the visitation, I met with the family, got to know them, got some information about their deceased loved one. I thought I was getting the time for the funeral the next morning, and somehow we crisscrossed. And so the next morning I got up and I was ready for the funeral, and I got there, I thought 15 minutes early. And I pulled into the parking lot, and one of the funeral attendants, he came out and said, "Where you been, Pastor?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean, where have I been? I'm early." He said, "No, you're not." He said, they've been waiting in there for 15 minutes for you to do the funeral. And man, my heart about stopped. And I wanted to just cruise right back to the church and not even go in. But I knew that wouldn't be the right thing to do, so I just kind of took the bull by the horns. I walked in, and it was a pretty large funeral. So it wasn't like a small funeral. A lot of people were in there. Again, I had just met this family. So I just went down to the front. I stood behind the lectern, and I said, "Hey, I just want to begin by apologizing." I said, "Somehow I got mixed up here. I thought I was early. I'm so sorry for being late." And I just went ahead and did the funeral. God bless. The people appreciated. Everything went well. But I can tell you this, I have never been late to a funeral again. I check, I double check, I triple check. That was a very embarrassing moment. And I think the worst of us and the best of us have had embarrassing moments in our life. I think about the Apostle Peter. You know, the Apostle Peter had some great moments in his life. You know, he walked on water. Now, it was just for a little while, but he did walk on water for a little bit. He made the good confession, right? "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." He was one of the first to evangelize the Gentiles. He went outside the Jewish fold and proclaimed the gospel to Cornelius and others that Jesus Christ wanted them to be his followers as well. Through prayer, he raised a woman from the dead. And then also in our Bible, he wrote 2 of the books, 1 Peter and 2 Peter. I would say those are some pretty good accomplishments. But you know, he also failed at times. There was a moment when Jesus took his followers aside and he said, "Hey, I'm going to go. I'm going to be crucified. I'm going to die. I'm going to die for your sins." And Peter said, "Oh, no. Lord, that will never happen to you." And Jesus said, "Get behind me, Satan," speaking to Peter. On another occasion, when Jesus was being arrested, Peter tried to intervene, and he took his sword, and he cut off the ear of the servant of the high priest. You know what Jesus did? He just reached down, got his ear, and just put it back on the man and healed him right there. That's in the Bible. But I'll tell you what, probably his most embarrassing moment was when he denied Christ 3 times. 3 times he said, "I do not know Jesus," and I am not a follower of Jesus. I want to look at that embarrassing moment in the life of the Apostle Peter today, and I want you to gain from this. What I want you to gain from this is that, we all fail at times, but God can still forgive you, and God can still use you in spite of your failure. We see that with the Apostle Peter. So if you have a Bible, go ahead and take it. We'll be over in Matthew chapter 26. I'm going to start with verse 31. We're going to read down a few verses and then skip down, read a few more verses. We're going to talk about this denial of Christ by Peter. Let's start with verse 31. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away." And by the way, the word all is used 3 times in this little passage. He's not just talking to Peter. He's talking to all of them. "You will all fall away because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Peter answered him, "Though they all fall away because of you, I will never fall away." Notice what Peter said, "I will never fall away." Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even if I must die with you, I will not deny you." And all the disciples said the same. Skip down, if you would, to verse 69. This is the actual denial of Christ. So the first passage is Jesus predicting the denial of Christ. This second passage is where he actually denies him. Look at verse 69. Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. That's the courtyard of the high priest. Jesus has been arrested at this time. And a servant girl came up to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before them all, saying, "I do not know what you mean." And when he went out to the entrance, another servant girl saw him. And she said to the bystanders, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." And again he denied it with an oath, "I do not know the man." After a little while, the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you too are one of them, for your accent betrays you." He had a Galilean accent, which was much different from the accent in Judea. Kind of like those of us who have a southern accent, much different from those in the north. Then he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, "I do not know the man." And immediately the rooster crowed, and Peter remembered the saying of Jesus, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. How did this happen? How did a man who wrote 2 books in the New Testament, a man who through prayer raised a lady from the dead, a man in one of the high moments of his life said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God"? How do you go from saying you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, to denying Christ 3 times? How do you fall in that manner? How do you stumble in that way? Well, I want to look at how this happened in the life of the Apostle Peter. I want to give you some reasons why he failed, and then I want to talk about failure in general. One of the reasons why Peter failed is he spoke when he should have listened. Some of us are like that. We're so busy talking that we're not listening. And Peter spoke when he should have listened. So Jesus gathered the disciples together. He said, "I'm going to be arrested. I've already told you this. I'm going to be arrested. And you will all fall away." He wasn't just pointing out Peter. You will all fall away. He wasn't asking for a response. He wasn't asking for a comeback. He wasn't asking for anything. He was just saying, this is going to happen. And Peter said, "Oh no, Lord, not me. These others may fall away, but I am the exception." And so what did he do? He spoke when he should have listened. And Jesus wasn't looking for a response. He wasn't looking for an answer. He was just saying, "You're going to all fall away." But Peter said, "No, I'm the exception." It's like some of us when we were filling out our brackets. Everybody else's bracket's going to be busted, but not mine. Well, all of our brackets got busted this year, amen? And Jesus was saying, you're all going to fall away. And Peter said, no, not me. Do you talk so much that you don't listen? Now, I'm not getting on those of you who like to talk. I know some of you like to talk. You have the gift of gab. You're an extrovert. And if there's no one around, you're just going to talk to yourself, right? I mean, you're just talking. You probably came out of the womb talking because you just enjoy talking. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not getting on you for liking to like to talk. I'm not getting on you for that at all. I'm just saying, if you're not careful, you can talk so much that you don't take time to listen. Sometimes you need to listen. You need to listen to what your teacher is saying to you at school. You need to listen to what your coach is trying to teach you in sports. You need to listen to your parents. You need to listen to your boss. You need to listen to your friends. You need to listen to your spouse. But most importantly, you need to listen to God. Now, sometimes God speaks through those other people. He may speak through your coach. He may speak through your teacher, through your parents and spouse and so forth. But he also speaks to us in his word. And we need to take time to listen. Kyle and I, we were talking Friday, and we were talking about our phone system at the church. We were having some technical difficulties, and basically, we could call out, but nobody could call in. And I wonder if times that's how we are in our life. We want to speak, but we don't want to listen. We can call out, but no one can call in. I can speak into your life, but you're not going to speak into my life. I can tell you what you need to do, but you're not going to tell me what I need to do. I'm going to talk to God in prayer, but I'm not going to let God talk back to me or talk to me. We could call out, but nobody could call in. And I wonder if sometimes in our life, we want to tell everybody else how to live their life, but nobody can speak into our life. You see, we need to listen. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 2 says, do not be hasty to speak, and do not be impulsive to make a speech before God. God is in heaven, and you are on earth, so let your words be few. Now, there's a characteristic that I look for when I'm hiring people. At times you got to hire staff. And one of the characteristics that I prize is someone who's teachable. It's just so important. And if you're an employer, I know you probably feel the same way. You want someone who's teachable, someone who will listen, someone who can take correction, someone that doesn't get their feelings hurt all the time, someone that you can train, because you can get somebody and they may not even know how to do the job, but if they are teachable and they have a good work ethic and they want to succeed, you can train them and you can teach them. But if they come in and they already know it all and they come in with an attitude, you can't teach me anything, they're going to be a detriment to your organization or your business or your company. And so being teachable is you're listening, you're learning, and we need to keep listening and we need to keep learning. So what did Peter do? He spoke when he should have listened. Well, second, Peter boasted when he should have confessed. So Jesus got these disciples together and said, you're all going to fall away. What Peter should have done is, oh no, Lord, I'm going to fall away. I'm going to deny you. That's in my heart. Oh Lord, help me not to do that. Oh Lord, have mercy on me. That's not how he responded. He boasted when he should have confessed. And he said, even if they all fall away, and in the Greek it's very emphatic, I myself will never, ever forsake you. Compared to them, they might do it. I won't. I will never, ever, under any circumstances, forsake you or deny you. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to fall away. They might. I won't. You see how he was boasting? And what did Jesus say? Jesus said to him, Peter, you're going to fall quickly, greatly, and repeatedly. You're going to fall quickly this very night. You're going to fall greatly. You're going to deny me. And you're going to fall repeatedly. You're going to deny me 3 times. And again, Peter, he couldn't accept the word of Jesus. Can you imagine the audacity? We believe Jesus is God in the human flesh. God is telling you something and you're talking back to God. Actually, God, you're not right here. I know that you're saying I'm going to fall away. I know you're saying that I'm going to deny you, but God, that's not going to happen. You see, he should have been confessing. He should have been admitting his weakness, but he was boasting. The strong person is not the person who has no weaknesses. Why? Because we all have weaknesses. The strong person is not the one who has no weaknesses. He's the one or she's the one who recognizes their weaknesses, acknowledges their weaknesses, and guards themselves against them. That's the strong person. Being strong does not mean you have no weaknesses. Tell me somebody that has no weaknesses. You have weaknesses. I have weaknesses. You have shortcomings. I have shortcomings. We're human beings. So being strong is not, well, I don't have any weaknesses. No, it's I know my weaknesses. I know my temptations. Do you? Being strong is not having weaknesses. It's knowing your weaknesses and guarding yourself against them. And we need to confess our weaknesses to God. The song says, Lord, I come, I confess. Bowing here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Where sin runs deep, your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. Where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh, God, how I need you. That's what Peter should have done. He boasted when he should have confessed. Think about alcoholism. You may have someone in your family. I think the statistics are that 1 in every 10 families have someone connected to alcoholism. And you think about those who battle alcoholism or maybe some other form of addiction, and you want to just say to them, just quit, just stop. It's not that easy, to be honest with you, to come up to a bona fide alcoholic or a bona fide drug addict and just say, hey, just stop. It's not that easy. And we have a program known as Alcoholics Anonymous that, at least historically has helped a lot of people. And the first step, they have these steps, these 12 steps that you follow. And the first step is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. That's the first step. Now think about it. You're trying to get help. You want to stop, this lifestyle that's hurting you, hurting your family, maybe cost you your job, your kids. The first step is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. What do you need to admit today that you're powerless over? Is it anxiety, fear, anger, lust, greed, jealousy? What do you need to admit that you're powerless over? And therefore your life has become unmanageable. You see, victory begins when you admit defeat. And if you've ever known an alcoholic or a drug addict, there's a lot of denial, there's a lot of manipulation, and there's a lot of blaming others and not taking responsibility. And how do you get help? You come clean with God and you admit your need to God. What does it say in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 10? For when I am weak, then I am strong. You see, in my weakness, I lean on God for his strength. Well, a third reason when you think about why did Peter stumble? Peter slept when he should have prayed. So Peter spoke when he should have listened. He boasted when he should have confessed. Peter slept when he should have prayed. Matthew 26, 40, 41. And Jesus came to the disciples and found them sleeping. This was at the Garden of Gethsemane. And it goes on to say, and he said to Peter, so could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. So Peter had a problem with self-confidence. Now you're going to think, how is self-confidence a problem? We want kids to believe. We want kids to know they can do things. I'm talking about self-confidence in the sense that Peter was trusting in his own abilities rather than relying on God. What God wants more than self-confidence is God reliance. That's really what he wants. And Peter thought he could do it. I know everybody else is going to deny you, but Lord, I won't. That's him trusting in himself and not knowing his own weaknesses. And this type of false confidence always goes along with a lack of praying. Prayerlessness and confidence in yourself, they always go together. Because it just makes sense. If you think you can do it, if you think you can handle it, why pray? But when you know I can't do it, I can't overcome this temptation, I can't accomplish this task, then you're going to pray and ask God to help you. And instead of praying, he was sleeping. Prideful people don't pray much. And if you're not someone that prays a lot, maybe the reason is you think you can handle it. You think you can take care of it. When really we need to rely on God. Jesus said the spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Look how weak the flesh is. So Jesus said, you're going to deny me 3 times. And this is a strong fisherman, right? And this is a working man. And he said, no way. Everyone else will, not me. And I'm even willing to die if necessary. He's probably thinking about Roman soldiers, right? Well, who was it that he denied Christ in front of? A servant girl. Not a man, not even a woman, just a girl. Here's Peter, I'm going to take on the whole Roman Empire if I have to for you, Jesus. I'm never going to deny you. And a lowly servant girl comes, and he can't even stand up before her. That's how weak he was in of himself. And it was his accent that gave him away. That old Galilean accent. You know, the Judeans, they made fun of the Galilean accent. Just like some of the northerners, they make fun of our southern accent. You know, we don't like those northern people, do we? Oh, wait, none of you are the northern people, right? We're all southern people, aren't we? But they made fun of his accent. And that's kind of what ferreted him out. And so he had to decide, what am I going to do? Well, what was his practice? What was his plan? Well, it started with evasion. He just acted like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're even talking about. He just wanted to evade the question altogether. And then he actually denies Christ. I don't know the man. But then the third, he calls down a curse upon himself. You know, it says he swore, and some of you think, well, he used bad language. That's not what it's talking about. It's not saying he used curse words. It's saying that he said, may God curse me if I'm lying. That's exactly what he's saying here. It's not he used bad language. It's that he evaded the question to begin with, and then he denied Christ, and then he denied Christ with swearing that he did not know Christ, in that he's saying, if I'm lying, may God curse me, may God punish me. I'm glad God didn't answer that prayer. I'm glad God wasn't faithful to that oath or that swearing of Peter, but he denied Christ even before a lowly servant girl. This was a great moment of failure in Peter's life. However, and I don't want you to miss this, I think next to Pentecost, this was the most character-influencing event in Peter's life. I don't think there's a moment in Peter's life other than Pentecost when he received the Holy Spirit, filled with the Holy Spirit. I think if you were to write a biography of Peter, the apostle, there's not an event in his life that influenced his life, changed his life more than this moment. And you say, how can that be? That was his greatest failure. I think it influenced him more when he said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Because of this, Peter was a strong man. Peter was a working man. And Peter, his whole life was, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And Jesus said, this is a time, Peter, you can't do it. And you're not going to do it. No, I can. And this was a time in his life when he came face to face with his own weakness, his own frailty, and his own sinfulness. This is when Peter really saw himself in the mirror. Without you, Jesus, I am nothing. And it says he went out and he wept bitterly. I think this transformed his life. Now, at the moment, this man is overcome with grief in a way it's hard to really describe, because we know the end of the story. We know Jesus rises from the dead and he restores Peter. He doesn't see any of this coming. Do you know the disciples did not believe that Jesus was going to rise from the dead? Peter goes back to fishing. He goes back to his trade. He thinks it's over. This man that has loved me, this man that I have confessed is the Christ, I have denied him 3 times. He is dead. I can never make it right again. I will never see him again. And kind of my last moments, I've heard of people say they have such regret because their last moments with someone, maybe they got in a fight, maybe they got in an argument, and then they die and they don't get to reconcile, and they live with that guilt. And that's basically Peter. He doesn't know he's going to see Jesus again. This man's overwhelmed. This man's a broken man. But it's through brokenness that God many times blesses us and brings us to where we need to be. Let me just share in closing here a few thoughts about failure. I hope that you'll find this practical. First of all of us have failed at times in our life. I don't really think you need me to tell you that. But in case you do need me to tell you that, all of us have failed at times in our life. And the Bible's honest about this. This is one of the reasons I love the Bible so much. Some organizations and some people, they want to cover up, hide, conceal, kind of rewrite history. There's no rewriting of history in the Bible. And when you read the Bible, it's very frank about the character flaws of its heroes. Noah fell prey to drunkenness. Moses committed murder. David engaged in adultery. Peter denied Christ 3 times. These are heroes in the Bible. And yet they failed, and yet they're in the Bible. No one is perfect. So maybe you're here today and you're kind of checking out the church, not just this church, but maybe you're just checking out church in general. Maybe you're just checking out Christianity in general, and you've heard that we're bigoted, and you've heard that we're judgmental, and you've heard that, we are this way or that way. Actually, we're all imperfect people following a perfect Savior. And if you say, well, I can never be a Christian, I can never come into the church because my past and my shortcomings, no, you're just the ones. Jesus said, I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Jesus said, it's not the well that need a physician, it's the sick that need a physician. So if you're broken, you got problems, you feel like a failure, like you're just the person we want, okay? Because that's who Jesus came for. And all of us have failed. All of us have things in our life we're not proud of. Romans 3:23 says, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. But good news, failure can be a good teacher if we learn from our mistakes. That's a big if. If we learn, one has said, failure is the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. So failure can be a good teacher. I've never been late to another funeral. Never. I hope I never do. Because I learned. Check, double check. And when you make a mistake, you often learn in that area. So my son Graham, he's 9, and we've gotten into this routine where we play chess together now. He just really likes chess. And if you've ever played chess, it's a little bit more complicated than checkers. So if you're at checkers, you might want to, go next would be chess. And so we've started playing chess together. And, at first it's a little complicated. To kind of figure out who all these figures are and why one can go this way and one goes that way and the whole routine. And I want my son to learn. I want him to grow. And you might think I'm a bad parent, but I don't let him win every time. Because if I let him win every time, he's going to think he's going to win every time, and he's not going to win every time. So I win every time because I want him to learn humility and depend on God. No, I'm kidding. So, playing chess together at first, it was kind of hard for him to win because he was just learning. And so he would lose, and then he would win a game and lose, win, lose, win. And last night we played together, and he won both games. And, you might not think I'm that intelligent. I was trying to win, and he won both games. So he's picking up on the nuances and, setting you up and so forth. But times when he lost. My son, I don't know if your children are this way, my children really like to win. They really like to win, and they hate to lose. And there were some tears when Dad beat him in chess. I feel like I'm a horrible parent. There were some tears when he lost. And what I would say to him, I feel like I'm talking to myself because he's so much like me, is I'm saying, Graham, you learn. Just take it all in. You just keep learning. Every time you lose, every time I have a move, you learn. Okay, I'm not going to do that again. Failure is not final. Failure is an opportunity to learn. I don't do that again. And I can just see his little mind working and picking up things. And so when you lose a ball game, and if you're playing sports, you think we're going to win every single game, just ask South Carolina girls. You're not going to win every game, okay? There's defeat out there. It's going to happen. But you learn. I try to do that as a pastor. I don't feel like I'm a perfect pastor, but I try to be a quick learner. And when a mistake is made, you don't want to repeat it. And you just keep growing and you keep learning. Peter did this. Let me read you a passage that he wrote. This is 1 Peter 5 and 6. Now remember, this is the man that protested and said, I will never deny you. This is the man that had absolutely no humility. And yet, listen to what he said. Now, at first you're going to say, well, he's a hypocrite. No, he's not. He's been changed. 1 Peter 5 and 6. In the same way, you who are younger, submit yourselves to your elders. All of you clothe yourselves with humility toward one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. That's the man who, full of pride, said, I'll never deny you. That's a man who learned his lesson. Again, I don't think there's a moment in Peter's life that had more of an influence on his character than his denial, than Pentecost. Because I think he came face to face with his own weakness and frailty. Well, one other thing, let me share with you quickly. God can redeem our failures and use us again. He did so with Peter. So Peter denied Christ. He went out and wept bitterly. He thought it was over. He didn't think Jesus was going to rise from the dead. But he did. Amen. He rose from the dead. He restored Peter. And on the day of Pentecost, we're just talking about a month or two later, denied Christ, one of the lowest moments of his life, before a servant girl. Just less than 2 months later, he's preaching on the day of Pentecost before the masses, unafraid, full of courage. 3,000 people converted to Jesus Christ. He was the chief spokesman. Tell me that's not the grace of God. You go from flat out denying you even know Jesus. And Jesus is looking for the keynote speaker on the day of Pentecost. And Jesus chooses that man, the man that denied him, the man full of pride. He said, Peter, I want you to be the keynote speaker. And through him, 3,000 were converted. Don't think that your failure, oh, I failed God. God can never use me again. God can use you again. But you do have to humble yourself. You can't stay that way. If Peter would not have confessed his pride and would not have learned, he would not have been used on the day of Pentecost. But he humbled himself. James 4:10, I think I shared this last week. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. It's not you lift yourself up, he will lift you up. Now, there was another man who failed the Lord about the same time. His name was Judas, and he betrayed Christ. Isn't it interesting to compare Judas and Peter? They both failed the Lord royally. Judas sold him out, but Peter denied him. Judas gave in to despair, and he went out and unfortunately took his own life. And that's the end of his story. But Peter was redeemed, and he was used by God on the day of Pentecost to win 3,000. Listen, we all fail. We all fail at times. How do we respond to the failure? Do we come to God, own it, confess it, let him transform us? God can still use you. God can still bless you. God's hand is still upon you. Don't be like Judas. Be like Peter. Learn from your failure. Let God raise you up again. And if you're here today and you're not a follower of Jesus and you feel like, man, I got all this baggage and all this stuff in my life, he can forgive all of it. If he can forgive Noah and drunkenness, and he can forgive Moses with murder, and David with adultery, and Peter denying Christ, I can just go on and on and on through the Bible, the litany of failure in the Bible. God can forgive all this sin. There's one sin God won't forgive. There's one sin God can't forgive, and that's the sin you refuse to repent of. That's the only sin. But if you will repent of it, if you will confess it, God can forgive all sin because of Jesus Christ.
Thank you for joining us today for Towne Church Online. We pray you've been blessed, encouraged, and even challenged by today's message. If you would like to respond in any way, maybe you'd like to give your heart to Jesus, maybe you have a prayer request you'd like to share, or you'd like to just check in and let us know how you're doing, you can go to our website at towne.church/connect and fill out our online connect card there. Also, if you'd like to give to Towne Church to support the continuing ministry here in our area and beyond, go to our website at towne.church/invest and you can give of your tithes and offerings there. Make sure to like, subscribe, or to follow so you can get these messages each time they come on. You can find the links there in the description of this video. Until we're able to see each other again, we pray you be blessed.